What's up, everybody? And come on back. No, welcome back. Again, for the 500th time.
Yeah.
But welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I am your host, Kyle Spencer.
And I'm Henry Roman, the co-host.
Are you sure?
Not really.
You said that strangely. I am Henry Roman, the co-host.
Well, half the time I'm getting fired, the other half the time I quit.
So, are you unsure of your position right now?
I'm sure I'm going to be here tomorrow.
Give me a reason.
I'm not kind of thinking retirement's going to be in the plan.
Come on. So yeah, we're going to talk to you tonight. And
possibly.
Our topic tonight is, are you sure? And we're going to be found in 1 Kings chapter 18. I am using my fancy-dancy loose leaf Bible in case I don't agree with anything that's here. Also, if you have not had the chance and opportunity to watch last week's video took a dive into our app and explained some of the features. I encourage you, if you have not seen that, go back and check it out. But tonight we're going to be in 1 Kings chapter 18, starting with verse 20. Again, if you're using our app, you can use a little Bible feature in there. Bam, pull it up.
Bingity boggity boom.
Felt like I was going to cough, and I didn't want to cough in the mic. All right, starting with verse 20. So to kind of give a little bit of backstory here, Elijah is replying to Ahab, and he's telling them because, hey, your family and all your troublemakers, you know what, you've refused to obey the Lord. Instead, you want to obey Baal. So you know what? I'm coming at you, and I want you to meet me at Mount Carmel. Mm-hmm. And we're going to set up a ring. Everybody else gets ringside seats. And we're
sound like a high noon showdown.
Right? It kind of does. And in this corner, hey, and these are the mics for it too.
In this corner we have Kyle Spencer. In the other corner we have Satan. Who's gonna win? Get your tickets, bet right up.
Shut up.
I got 20 on the devil.
Wow.
Your back is hurt, man. I gotta make that money.
That hurt.
We got a building fund.
That hurt. You're fired.
I told you. It didn't take long. Dang it, I will.
Well, with comments like that.
I know, it didn't take long.
Well, anyways.
I'm sorry.
So, Elijah told Henry and Ahab to go and meet him at Mount Carmel because he was going to show him up.
Yep.
So now we're in verse 20. It says, so Ahab summoned all the people of Israel and prophets to Mount Carmel. Then Elijah stood in front of them. I hope you guys can't hear what's in the background because other people are using our facility and it's pretty loud. So I apologize if you hear background noise. But Elijah stood in front of everybody there, and he said, how much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. Mm-hmm. But the people were completely silent. Then it sounds like a Sunday morning service, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Then Elijah said to them, I am the only prophet of the Lord who is left. But Baal has 450 prophets. So now bring 2 bulls, and the prophet of Baal may choose whichever one they wish, and cut it into pieces and lay it on the on the wood of their altar, but without setting fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood on the altar, but not set fire to it. Then you can call on the... Sorry, I was reading that out of context. Then call on the name of your God, little g, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers this by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all of the people agreed. So, you have Elijah here, and he's basically making a wager.
And he's putting their God to the test.
And the funny thing about the story is I was rereading it. I've heard the story a bunch of times. But usually when people go into a wager and they're the ones that bring up the wager, it's because they're very confident in what they're presenting. So it was funny, I was watching this YouTube reel or whatever the other day, and in it this guy had a piece of fabric, and you could tell he was like a street magician or sleight of hand guy, whatever. And he said, so he's at this party, and he has this thing in between his two hands, and there's a pole in between him and the fabric. And he's telling them, hey, do you think that you can take this fabric without loosening your hands from the fabric and get it to the other side?
Around the pole, yeah.
And get it around the pole without removing your hands. So, of course, everybody in there is like, and this guy grabs it, and he just kind of pulls on it. He's like, there's no way. It's physically not possible. And the guy's like, there's a way. He's like, I promise you there's a way. And the guy's like, no. He's like, I'll give you 100, because I'm assuming this was in England. He's like, I'll give you 100 pounds. He's like, if you can do this. Well, then he kept on doing it. Then another guy did it, and the first guy upped the wager to 1,000 pounds. And he said, there's no way, no way, no way. He's like, are you sure? He's like, I'm telling you, there is a way. So finally, he grabs it. And he kind of just does this little tug motion on the pole. And the guy's like, 10,000.
Oh, wow.
He's like, 10,000 pounds if you can do it. And the guy, once again, said, are you sure? He's like, because it is possible. He's like, I promise you it's possible. He kept on saying it. I promise you, this is going to be the end result.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have brought this up if I wasn't sure about it. If I wasn't sure about it. And he's like, yeah. And all of a sudden, he does it. And you don't know how. You don't know what the science was, the sleight of hand. You have no idea how it happened. But he just
did it without letting it go.
Did it without letting it go. And all of a sudden, you just saw the look in the guy's face like, dang.
Ooh.
I'm out. So now let's go.
That's why I do not make bets like that. But you know what? I did win one bet, and I did win 100 pounds from a guy, and his name was Popeyes.
I was going to say, you're still wearing it.
Yeah.
So now knowing that, let's go back into the story of Elijah. And again, now they have the bulls prepared. They have them on the altar. And I really hope you guys can't hear this background music.
And if you can, just dance.
Yeah, just dance and follow along. It's like, I guess, like if we were to pay to have background music.
It is what it is.
So, in verse 26, it says, so they prepared one of the bulls and they placed it on the altar. And then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noontime, shouting, O Baal, answer us. But there is no reply of any kind. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar that they made. And about noontime, Elijah began to mock them.
I can see this happening.
And he's like, He's like, hey, you need to shout louder. For surely he is a god. Perhaps he's just daydreaming. Or perhaps he is relieving himself.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe he is away on a trip. Maybe he is asleep and needs to be awakened. So, what did they do? They shouted louder. And following their normal customs, they began to cut themselves with knives and swords until the blood gushed out.
Yeah, that's going to do it.
They raved all afternoon. It's funny how, this speaks of raves, that they raved, and we see similar
yeah, exactly.
similar things taking place in our culture today where there's raves, and there's some of the same acts they're hobbling around, they're shouting, they're
cutting themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Golly.
And they do it for a long length of time. So they raved all afternoon until the time of the evening sacrifice, but still there was no sound, no reply, and no response. So then Elijah called to the people and said, come over here. So they all crowded around him as he prepared the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one to represent each of the 12 tribes of Israel, and he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. Then he dug a trench around the altar, large enough to hold about 3 gallons. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, and laid the pieces on the wood. So then he said, fill 4 large jars with water and pour the water over the offering and the wood. So after they had done this, he said, do the same thing again. And when they were finished, he said, now do it a 3rd time.
Make
so
sure
they did,
it's soaked.
Yeah, soak it. So they did as he said, and the water ran around the altar and even filled the trench. So at the usual time for offering the evening service, the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have brought them back to yourself. And immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground and cried out, the Lord, he is God. Yes, the Lord is God. Then Elijah commanded, seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let a single one escape. So the people seized them, and Elijah took them down to the Kishon Valley and killed them there. Wow. So the title of this was Are You Sure? And to sum this up into a very short, abbreviated context of this conversation is we need to be as certain as Elijah. Again, Elijah walked up. Let me put into perspective what would have happened if Elijah would have been wrong. Exactly what had happened to the prophets of Baal would have happened to Elijah.
Yeah, because they would have killed him.
Whether Baal would have showed up or not, if God wouldn't have showed up, it would have been more than likely would have been it for Elijah. They would have had him killed.
Yeah.
For mocking, for terrorizing the people, for terrorizing Ahab, it would have just went south real quick.
And I think there's a lesson in that, is that we as believers, we can't afford to be wrong just like the world. So just because they're wrong, we don't get an out. No different than they would have given him an out.
And the other part to this, and the part that I really wanted to drive home is, Henry, where is your house?
Over there.
If I asked you to draw a map out for me, to give me directions to your house, would you do it?
No.
I already know where you live. All right. Let me change it. Popeyes.
Oh, I'd draw you a map to Popeyes.
Because
in graphic, perfect detail, to scale.
So if somebody were to stop you on 25 and say, Henry, can you point me to the nearest Popeyes? Without hesitation, you would say, yep, go down this street, take a right here, take a left here. If you go this way, it'll take you to the back, and that's where the good chicken's at.
And the guy that works at 2:00, he'll hook you up.
Yeah. And the reason why is because you're certain. Mm-hmm. There's no hesitation in what you're presenting because you are certain. You are sure. You have been there. You have experienced it. You have studied it. You've had everything that had to do with Popeyes at that location. Mm-hmm. Now, if I were to tell you, hey, can you tell me where the closest Popeyes is in Los Angeles?
Yeah, then I wouldn't be certain. No.
And chances are you would just kind of sit there for a second, like, one, why are you even asking me? Mm-hmm. I don't live in Los Angeles. I've never been to Los Angeles. I've never been to a Popeyes over there. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So we don't present information that we're not sure of. Mm-hmm. But then and
definitely not with certainty.
So we want to know why, when people want to know about God, when people want to know about Jesus, and we stop and we don't share. Mm-hmm. Why is it that we don't share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we haven't made that certainty on our own hearts, that we know, to the point that we would be, to like Elijah, he put his life on the line. You know, if I really believe God was who he said he is, I would actually put my life on the line for it.
So if it's true. So I know that this may have a tinge of I'm coming at you. This is actually meant to be more of a encouraging word. Mm-hmm. Is if you are certain, be certain. Mm-hmm. Don't hesitate. Mm-hmm. Just put it out there. Put your life out there. Because if you have a relationship, if you have that commitment that you have given your life to Jesus because you took that step of faith in certainty, I am telling you right now, I don't care if I saw a ladder that had broken rungs, was rotted away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't care how much you gave me. I would not for a second put my life on the line.
Not for that.
Not for that. I even seen this one picture or this video or whatever. I think it was a video. They took extension ladders. Mm-hmm. And they had the extension ladder like this. And then they had another extension ladder here to support it. And then they had zip ties holding this extension ladder to that extension ladder. And another extension ladder that was zip tied to that one. And then one guy up on a balcony holding in the middle. And this dude was climbing it. You want to talk about faith?
Yeah.
I don't trust any zip tie that much. that I would trust a zip tie with my life.
That's like we were in class training, learning about safety, and they had a guy and obviously
Safety third.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what it was, and you know, obvious in other countries where they might be poor, they don't have all of the stuff that we have. So the guy was actually welding with just regular sunglasses on. And you're thinking to yourself, like, if you know it, like the arc of a welder, I mean, it'll blind you. And that's why they have those really, really, really dark masks that they use. Sunglasses are nowhere near dark enough to protect you from that amount of bright light. So we're all thinking like, well, this guy's going to be blind in a week if it takes that long.
Yeah.
But you think about it, people take those chances and without certainty, you know, because obviously if he's doing it, you know, this is not going to last long.
But so I'm going to cycle back to the example that I used. Is how do you know where Popeyes was?
Because I've been there.
You've experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
You've been there. You read their menu.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go there, you'll never have certainty.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't experience and allow the experience to take place, because guess what? You didn't have to go to that Popeyes. You could have drove past and went to KFC. Now, it would have been real stupid for you to do that, but you would have done it.
What you talking about, Willis?
But the point is just because I have this available to me doesn't mean I experienced it.
No. And the Lord does say, taste and see that I'm good.
Yeah.
And without doing that, you'll never know that he's really good because you haven't had that experience, that one-on-one. It's like me telling you how good God is. But until you experience a moment where God steps in and proves that he's good to you, you don't have that experience. And so you see people that have been walking with God for a long time, you can see that their level of faith in many cases is different from somebody that's a novice that just walked in. They've experienced God over many years of him showing up. And so they know that they know that they know, you know. You don't tell old grandma, you know, something stupid about, you know, what her experience with God is, because she knows him. She's walked with him for many years. She's had him step in and right some wrongs and fix some things, and some things she even desired and didn't tell nobody. You know, he worked on. And so you can't tell her nothing about Muhammad or nobody else. She's not going to want to hear it because she has experienced who God is, you know. And so I just think that, you know, like you said, without diving in this book for ourselves, and I don't think it's putting God to some kind of test, but putting some things before God that are, you know, desires in your life, things that you would like to see happen, a person you might want to see get saved, a situation that's weighing on you, and then being able to wait on the Lord and allow the Lord to actually step in to remedy that situation. And then when it does happen, I mean, can't nobody tell you that didn't happen.
And some of that's hard for me, because my son comes to me and he says, "Hey, Dad, I want this. I want a motorcycle. Motorcycle's really cool." Does that mean I'm going to give him the motorcycle?
No. No. Nope.
Does that mean that does that mean that me, the dad, doesn't exist?
No. That just means that the dad has wisdom to understand that you can't handle that.
So that's where I want to kind of draw the line in the sand with what you said. And the reason why is sometimes, very often, a lot of us base our belief in God and what he does for us. And the situations that we test him with. Hey, if you're real, do this.
Right, yeah.
If you're real, save this person. If you're real, change this scenario in my life. If you're real, do this. If you're real, give me money. Get me a better job. Get me a good girlfriend. Get me a good boyfriend. Get me a new wife, a new husband. and we put these challenges out there for God, I only will believe if this happens.
But that's what the enemy
And
did Jesus in the garden.
But don't allow that to be the determination, because you don't see what's taking place in the spiritual realm. You don't see what fights are happening on your behalf, what God is protecting you from. You know, one of the things that my dad used to do, and I haven't heard him do it in a long time, and I think it's because me and my mom both have the same perspective. Anytime we've ever heard it from him, is he would get upset that, because he's a truck driver, and he would get upset and he would say, you know what, man, I'm stuck here and something happened to my truck here and it's stopping me from getting here on time or there on time. And it's like, you don't know that the inconvenience that you're going through
may have been protect you from something.
is God's hand saying, slow down. You need to stop. And then there could have been an accident that you could have been involved in if you would have been there. You could have, we had that situation just, we were on our way up to Wisconsin. And, I was hauling a trailer. We were going to my parents' house. And on our way up to Wisconsin, all of a sudden, I'm looking in the back mirror, and I keep on staring at my tires on my trailer, thinking, you know what, I need to pull over, check the air on them. And by looking at them, there was nothing wrong with them. They weren't squatting. They didn't appear to have low air or anything. I just had this trickle in my mind,
gut feeling
that, hey, I should probably pull over to the gas station and check them. So I'm staring at these tires, thinking, why am I thinking this? Next thing you know, I look back in my mirror again. I think, man, that's a lot of smoke. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, that's me.
We're on fire.
So I pull over, and I think there's transmission fluid leaking all over the place. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I'm thinking immediately what ran into my head is, this is an $8,000 to $10,000 fix for my truck. And I'm like,
you saw smoke of dollar signs behind you.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, I had my moment of frustration, and then I just had peace that came over me. I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. We got up the road, went to a little oil shop. Some of the best people that we've met in a long time. And he took a look for me, and he's like, this blew out. He's like, it's not your transmission, it's just this. So my $8,000 to $10,000 fix went down to like $500, $600 fix in seconds. So then I got it towed to an actual garage. So I would go and pick it up later. And in towing it, or after I went back to pick it up, the guy calls me the day before I picked it up, and he says, hey man, he's like, we're researching. He's like, we'll dive into it. But we can't recreate it. He's like, your transmission's fine, everything's shifting fine. He's like, we cleaned up everything. We put UV dye in your transmission to dye the fluid. He's like, then we drove it around. He's like, we drove it hard. He's like, we took a UV light to check to see if there was any leaks. There's no leaks. He's like, just come and pick it up. He's like, you're fine.
Yeah.
We went from straight down the side of the road, $8,000 to $10,000 fix, to $60 for them to tell me there's nothing wrong with my truck.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, smoke bellowing
out
the back of it for a good half mile. And all you saw on the horizon was white smoke.
Right.
And it goes to show, do we know that God, that he prevented an accident? No. However, you clearly saw God's hand on the situation because of how every single aspect of it worked out.
And you've been driving it ever since.
And I've been driving it ever since with no problems.
Right. So sometimes, and I think you're right at that. And the other side of it is, you look at like Paul. Paul asked God several times to get rid of the thorn in the flesh, and God said, "No, my grace is sufficient for you." So it doesn't mean that God is going to answer our requests like that.
Well, Jacob wrestling with the angel, and the angel touched his hip. You know, it didn't. He walked with that limp from then on.
From then on, yeah. But also, I think in that too, I think sometimes just like when the Lord doesn't give us something, there's a blessing in that as well. Sometimes
Jesus
it's
on the
to teach us
cross.
something. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's to teach us something. Sometimes it's wisdom knowing that we can't handle it. Or it might not be no, it might just be not right now. And then we have to operate in patience. Because like we always say, the last thing you want to ask God for is patience. Because you will get it in the worst way. You will go the long route around the mountain a whole bunch of times. But, I don't think it's up on us to put God to the test. Yep. That's what Satan tried to do with Jesus in the garden. And it's not up for us to do that. I think it's up for us to just have faith and
experience.
And experience, yeah.
Experience
undergirds faith, though.
It does. Mm-hmm. But experience God's word. Understand how God works.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and you both know how Popeyes works. Mm-hmm. You go up to the counter, look at the menu, you tell them what kind of chicken you want. They put it in the deep fryer. They fry up all that yummy goodness. They put it on a plate. You go sit down. You eat it. A little bit later, you go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
We know the process. We know how the basic
like
interaction, the basic interaction with Popeyes goes. Mm-hmm. However, I don't know their financial records. Yeah. I don't know how many people they have on staff. Yep. I don't know how they keep their books because that's none of my concern. That's none of my business. Mm-hmm. My business is not to understand the ins and outs of how God works, how he operates in the breath of life, how he operates in the movement of the earth and our solar system and all that. Though that is interesting and fascinating to look at, I don't need to know. Mm-hmm. I just need to understand the basic interaction that I have with the Father from this time to that time. Mm-hmm. Because once I am an employee and I am behind the scenes, I will then understand how all of it works. Mm-hmm. But from this time to this time, I am a consumer. I am nothing but a customer that is enjoying the experience that I'm able to have, provided with the food that has been given to me.
Mm-hmm. That's basically like our orientation package.
So
when you get hired on.
So stop trying to be the CEO and just be the consumer. Mm-hmm. And you will walk in certainty. You will walk knowing and being able to respond and say, hey, I am a consumer of the Holy Spirit. Let me tell you where you can get some. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be the one that ushers it. I don't need to be at the counter. Yeah. I just need to tell them where to go.
Yeah. And I think, too, that takes us away from trying to just win an argument. It's not about winning an argument. Yeah. We can win the argument and lose the soul, so to speak. So we want to be able to use God's word effectively, but God's word is not meant to be a hammer. We're not, having that Bible to be a hammer looking for a nail. We just know it's a guidebook to life and life abundantly. So if we can do that, then I think that I would rather look bad and lose an argument, but portray God rightly in front of someone, so that in the day that they that experience comes, full circle, that they'll be able to look at me and say, well, you know what, maybe I didn't understand all of what he said, and maybe my point superseded his in the moment, but his experience with God is something that I want.
Taste and see that he is good.
Amen.
So we love you guys. We care about you guys. And as always, until next time.